And so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart because I struggle with it so much. And so I imagine if I do, at least there's a handful of other people that are neurotic like me. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to be talking about something that I think actually, if I had to convince you of this one thing, to be really honest, this would be one of the things that if I could sit you down when it comes to your marriage, when it comes to your friendships, certainly when it comes to leadership, any of those things, when it comes to influence, this would be the thing that I wish I could convince everybody on. And I sort of joked about this a little bit in week one. I would say even on the politics side and, the tension that we feel there, like this is the thing, right? Today what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about the thing that I think actually has the most power to shape all of those things for the better in your life. Now, it's shaped by a cultural thing that isn't new to us, but I think it's amplified in our culture, and that's this, that everybody at some degree, right? Everybody at some degree, we want to win. You know what I mean? Like we all want to win. Never met somebody, I'm watching the World Baseball Classic because that's what I do, and we're watching these, and I watch these guys, and it is, if you're a baseball fan, you know this, everybody's a little bit more psychotic during, the games are incredible, right? And you watch this, and the desire that they have to win is so high, and so we were backing this up, and I was watching, my son plays baseball, we were watching these like 6, 7, 8-year-old kids play, and I was watching them, and I don't know if you've ever seen this with sports before, but when you ever seen parents get more into it than the kids? Anybody ever seen that before? Which is amazing. So my son was playing, it was like, I think it's an 8, 9, maybe 9 and 10-year-old baseball right now. And they have middle schoolers that do umpiring, which is fun. And so they're bad. I don't know how to say it. They're not great. You know what I mean? They're working on it. And I watched a parent like progress from one end of the bleachers all the way to like behind. And he was yelling at this like 7th grader. And I'm like, number one, let's be men about this. But number two, I was like, what the desire is, this is a parent. You not just want the team to win, but you want your kid to win, right? You want to win, right? No leader ever says that they don't want to win. Every sports person wants to win. This makes its way into our relationships. We'll talk about this. Like we want to win together in the relationship, or you say this all the time. Business. In almost every facet of life, we want to win. Now, what's hard is when it comes to our relationships, this mentality around winning, it actually can be more detrimental than it is good for us, right? Because you've had one of these before, right? All the relationship tension that you had, the vast majority of it, it starts with a conversation, and you get into a conversation, and at some point in the conversation with somebody that either you care about or that you're leading, somebody you're trying to influence, a friendship, whatever it is, all of a sudden the conversation, it just takes a shift at some point. You ever had one of these before? And sometimes it's because of what they said, sometimes it's because of how you feel. More times than not, as we talked about in week one, it's how we interpret what's said to us, right? And there's a shift in the conversation shifts, and when it does, all of a sudden something inside of us shifts pretty deeply, and you can feel this in marriage all the time, right? Like you're kind of joking, and then you kind of pick at each other, and then all of a sudden it becomes like a fight, and you're not even sure why you're fighting, but because you're fighting, what do you want to do? You want to win. Like, I don't even know what I'm fighting for, but I'm going to win this fight. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of that. And it shifts, and you know this, right? It shifts from like solving whatever the problem was that you had to winning the argument. And you know this too, if you've been around people long enough, that most of us have some sort of like nuclear option in the relationship that we can pull from, right? To win. And you can feel like you win, you know this, you win this sort of thing. And then what shifts for all of us is when this happens, it turns into like a me versus you moment. And anytime there's a me versus you moment, right, there's a conflict sort of thing that is inevitably going to make it where you may win but not win at all, right? So I'll tell you a story. This is kind of funny. Me and Emily, when we were dating, we were in college, and my mom lived in the city that we were going to college in, and so we decided we were going to go have lunch with her. Anybody ever been to O'Charlie's? Do you know O'Charlie's? You go to O'Charlie's for one reason, and that's the bread, because everything else is really not great. I don't even think they're around. Are they around anymore? I don't know. I think it's a Fogo de Chao anyway. They changed in Polaris. I like my fast food or sit down food. Anyway, so we went and we're driving over there, and it's about 20 minutes from the college that we're in to where we're going to eat with my mom. And we started driving, and about 2 minutes in, it started raining, right? Now, I know this is kind of lame, but you've seen this before. I'm an aggressive windshield wiper-er. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, there's like the slow speed. I never understand that. Like, why do you do, like, if you're going to do it. Do it. You know what I'm saying? And so it was raining, but it wasn't raining super hard, but the windshield wipers they were going. And so, there was a comment, and then I made a comment, and then there was another comment, and it was funny. You ever done this before? Like, you start laughing, oh, ha, 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 your mom, like a little bit of that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it just kept going and growing, and it just started going and going, and then we're 20 minutes away, and then by the time we get about 5 minutes away, this is like a full-on, like, yelling, like, who are you? Is this the right person? Kind of, like, it goes so big, and which is what you want before you have dinner or lunch with your mom. And so we get to the parking lot, and we were still fighting, and I'm sitting there really out of protest. This is how petty I was in college, never anymore. But I was sitting there, and we parked, and I left the windshield wipers on. And we continued to fight. And it got bigger, and it got bigger, and it got bigger. And here's what, and you know this, there was a point where the conversation shifted, and I just decided that I was gonna what? I was gonna win, and I was gonna win in the most petty way. And so like, we're doing all of this. And then when we get emotional in our house, this is just how I'm wired, which is awful. Please don't ever be like this. When someone with me is more emotional, I get less emotional and more snarky. And that's called stupid. That's not good. It never works, never good. And so this is what's going on with us. And we're just like, so she's more upset, and I'm just like, we're doing this. And I'll never forget, I thought about this afterwards. What's so great about that is that we did not resolve it. And so we had to walk in with having lunch with my mom. And if you're a parent, you know this, especially if you have an empty nest or whatever, when they're fighting, you just kind of know. And so we had to sit there and fake it. And so we're both smiling, and this is how petty it got. I shouldn't tell you this part. So she reached for a piece of bread, and I went, no, and I just grabbed it from her. And it was the last one. I know, I'm a terrible person. That wasn't even part of the story. Anyway, but I was thinking about that. Like, this is the thing. It is a small, funny thing. We got past it. We're 3 kids in. We did it. But I would say this. You know this. That is a petty, small example of what happens when you go, like, there's a conversation, and there's a shift in the conversation. When there's a shift in the conversation, you automatically go, I want to win. And when you want to win, you almost never win, right? When there's a part of you that goes, I got to win, whenever that comes up, you almost never win. So I put in my notes, let's go to the next one. I said it this way. Relationships are the rare place where you can win the argument and still lose. And you know this. I don't have to convince you of this. You know this, right? It's one of the rare places that you can pull. You know this. You pulled that nuclear card one time. Like, you said that thing that you knew that you couldn't say and you shouldn't say. And then you did. And you were like, what? Like, that's what happens. Like, you feel that in the moment, but in the midst of it, you know this, in the midst of it, what you've done is you've looked at the other person in front of you and says, you're actually the enemy in this relationship. Whatever amount of time that is, whenever you get into this sort of mode, there is an enemy, they are in front of you, and that's what it is. And so I put it in my mind, so this, and the question that we have to ask is like, what is the real enemy in these moments? What is the real enemy in these moments? Now, there's a person who wrote about half the New Testament. I think it's fascinating. In fact, the way that he writes is very confrontational, often very conflict, sort of like in it. Like, it's interesting the way that he writes. The guy's name is Paul. And he's writing to a group of people in an area of the world called Ephesus. And he started talking about this broader principle about how to live. And so he's writing these letters to these people. Part of the reason that he's writing these letters is he's watching people who are becoming followers of Jesus, or followers of the way, as they would have said it. And as they do this, they're living like crazy. Like, they're just not doing it well. And so he writes, and he gets to the heart of this. And in the midst of this, like about a third of the way in, fourth of the way in, somewhere in that range, he gets to these like 3 lines in the text that when applied to this particular thing is super helpful. And when applied to everything else is also super helpful, but especially this, right? And so in Ephesians chapter 6, here's what he says. He says, finally, and I love the way that he starts this section of it. Finally, be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Which again, if you're a follower of Jesus in the room, I would say of everything that I'm going to say over the next few minutes, there is a piece of this that feels like it's going to be dependent upon your discipline. And some of it is, but most of it isn't. In fact, what we've talked about throughout this series and really over the last 2 months is there's a dependence on Jesus' power and the Holy Spirit's guidance that you can't just muster up, and it's beyond you. It's almost like, I kind of jokingly say, you remember Captain Planet? You guys remember Captain Planet? They put on the ring and they do this thing, and all of a sudden there's more. And I kind of laughed going like, there's a little bit of that. When you become a follower of Jesus, like all of the writers of the New Testament talk about, that it's not just you. There's a beyond natural sort of ability and power that you have to do the things that God is calling you to do. In fact, when we talk about becoming a follower of Jesus, we actually talk about you becoming a new person, not you becoming a better person. And that's a different thing, right? So when he's talking about this, he sort of starts this section. He says, look, God's power is so strong and so mighty, and your strength in this area, and really all the areas he's going to teach on, comes from him. It doesn't come from you like white knuckling and becoming more. It comes from you like opening your hand and say, God, whatever you want with my life, here you go, lead me in this. And when it comes to relationships, I would say that's the posture of all of this. Before we even get into like the practical, it's God, whatever you want to do, I want to be strong, but not in my own strength. I want to be strong in how you've empowered me to be. And he goes on and he says this. Some of you grew up in Vacation Bible School, and you know the songs around it. He says, put on the full armor of God, which again, he shifts the language to being almost like warlike, right? That there is an enemy that you are sort of putting on armor to get ready for this, right? On the full armor of God so that you can take your stand, I love this, against the devil's schemes, right? Which is kind of fun. Good night, sweetheart. Hope you sleep good. You know, like that there is an enemy, and the enemy isn't the person in front of you. The enemy is the enemy that wants to pull you away from God's best for your life. And in the original language this is written in Greek, right? The word used here is the same word that we would get for like method, right? That the devil's schemes or the devil's method is one where he is influencing, pulling you away from what God wants you to do. The enemy wants to set up patterns in your mind and your heart and your life to pull you away. Set up patterns in your relationship that pull you away. That set up things for you that pull you in a direction that you were never tended to go. Now, we can talk about this from their understanding and certainly from a spiritual perspective, but this goes beyond that. In fact, one of my favorite, I guess you'd say like thought leaders, especially in psychology, comes from the Gottman Institute, right? So if you've never studied this, especially when it comes to relationships, it's so good. But they talk about this idea and some of the patterns and methods that come from this. And the language they use, I love it, is like the 4 horsemen, right? 4 horsemen that would pull you away, especially in relationships, from where you should be. And here's what they say. Here's kind of the language they use around it, right? The Gottman Institute, they're specifically talking about marriage, but I do think it applies to really all of our relationships. The first one is criticism, right? Anytime you get like a sort of attacks on your character or your decision-making, the criticism, all of a sudden that does something to you, right? And it causes you to be defensive, right? The defensiveness sort of posture. Contempt is their big one. In fact, they would say in their studies that when they find contempt in a couple, it's almost like you start the clock, how much longer they have. It's like the eye rolling, the disconnection in those ways. And then stonewalling, right? So it talks about all 4 of these, and I think it's so fascinating. These are not just like emotions that people feel. These are patterns that slowly build over the course of a person's life or in the relationship of a couple or a friendship or those kinds of things. And that as it grows, it just erodes the connectivity in the relationship. That as you allow it to grow, as you allow it to happen, as you allow yourself to lean into these sorts of things, it erodes it. Which again, Paul's talking about the devil's schemes when it talks about relationships and how we respond to people. It's these patterns, these methods that get into your mind and your heart and where you're moving that you go like, this is detrimental to all of it. Which means this, and you know this. You've been around people who maybe are married and you go like, look, it's just an enormous amount of criticism all the time. Like you've been around it, you go like, it just, and I don't know, anybody ever do this? I think I can say that. You ever like hung out and then you like go and then you get in the car and you go like, well, what did you think? You ever done this before? Does anybody else do that? We don't ever do that. I'm saying other people, you know what I mean? Like your friends do that, right? What do you think about that? Like, and you watch, come on, you know this, you watch and you go like, and you almost feel sad, like, oh, I don't know if they know that's how they're treating each other, you know, or the defensiveness, it's kind of a constant defensiveness, like, or the contempt, stonewall, like you can feel these things. You can be around people and you go like, there's a default posture with these people where you go like, oh, it's everything is like this. And it's not just emotions that people feel. It's not just things that pop up. These are patterns that get sort of put in a mind or in a heart, and they're cyclical. They just don't stop. And they're running like an operating system that constantly erodes the connectivity and closeness and intimacy in relationships, right? But if you look at like what it should be, let's go to the next one, right? If you were to change this, right, you go like, rather than criticism, what if it was like curiosity in these sorts of things? Like that feels more healing in a relationship, right? Or like defensiveness versus humility. Come on, you know this. You know it when you sense it, that you're around somebody and like, it's like defensive. And all of a sudden there's like somebody else who the same types of things happening, but it's like humility. Like again, if you've ever coached people, you know this, you see this, like a defensiveness with correction or humility, right? It's the no, it's not versus thanks, what else, you know? Like, come on, those of you who are leaders, you know this. Who do you want to hire? You want to hire the humble person all day long. You don't want to give correction over and over again and then just get like a wall, right? And I'd say this to anybody, I love telling young leaders this. One of the best things you could ever do as a young leader is to never get defensive around feedback and just welcome it, right? I want to know. You don't even have to agree with it, but they're thinking it anyway. And so if you welcome it, you at least know. That's better. If your posture invites it, then you at least know. In your marriage, come on, I'll tell you that, you know, you sit down and you're like, hey, you know, what can I be doing better? How can I be serving you better? And then you shut up. You don't say anything. You just listen. What else? What else? 4.5 hours later, you're like, well, that's a lot. But you know, like, I'm just kidding. But you look at this and you go, like, hey, I don't want to be defensive. I want to be humble. And again, come on, you know this. You don't have to apply all of it, but it's so good to know. So good to know. All right, contempt versus honor. This is a hard one. And once, especially in marriage, if you sense this in a marriage, I think this is, especially according to their studies and research, this is the thing you gotta get this out as aggressively as you can. And you have to lead through this. If the other person's not, then I think you really gotta lead through it. Like, this is not how we operate in our home. We don't do that. And then here's what you do. Here's part of the sort of like medicine for this, the healing of this, is you just honor like crazy. Honor like crazy. And then the other person honors like crazy. And it's like I love the image of this. I don't know who said it. I think I heard Andy say this, but it's like, how do I race to the bottom of my own, like, whatever? How do I serve you more? How do I serve you more? You ever been around people like that before? You're like, man, that's annoying. Man, I wish I was more like that. You know what I mean? Like, no, how can I serve you? No, I love you more. Shut up. You know, like, I don't know. Like, but you get it. Come on, you know this. You're like, but that's it. That's the stuff, you know? That's the part. No, don't miss it. That's the part where you look at that and you go, oh, man, that's where I want to be. I was with a couple, and they were in their 70s. 70s? Yeah, he was a pastor, and I was interviewing. And one of the best advice I ever got is, you know, when you get on an interview, watch how they treat the server, and if they're with a spouse, watch how they treat the spouse. And so I'm watching, and without saying anything, she orders an unsweet tea, which I guess we all have sin in our lives. But anyway, she orders, I'm just kidding. You're like, okay, maybe you should have less. I don't know. Like, yeah, anyway, until you get it, yeah. That wasn't that was hurtful. That was that funny to you, but that's all right. Just kidding. But no, she gets unsweet tea. And I watched the husband, the waitress dropped off the straw. And he's talking, like he's interviewing me. And simultaneously just kind of reaches beyond, gets whatever the pink stuff is, opens it, puts it in, gets the straw. She's still talking, and like asking me very deep questions. And I'm just sitting there like, you stir weird. But anyway, like, I don't know. Yeah. And he's stirring it. And then he just kind of rubs her back for a second and then like re-engages. And I was like, and the part of me is like, well, she could do that. Like, what is that? Is that like there's a you know, whatever. But then also like, no. They've been together for 40 years. He just knows that's how she likes it. I told this a while back. It's one of the sweetest things. I love, you know, I go to Chick-fil-A sometime. I'm there every once in a while. And I'll be driving. I don't know if Emily realized that I was trying to like drive with my knees and do it, but like I laugh now. It's like they give you the little ketchup things with the things, you know, they're like opens or it squirts. I think it's the best invention ever. Anyway, but she'll grab it and she'll put the things in there. She gives, now, could I do that? Absolutely. Am I a diva? Maybe. But I laugh going like, it's the smallest little thing where she's going, I'm just choosing to honor. I'm choosing to honor you, right? I love this, and again, I think this is part of my upbringing with my mom, but I was brought up that when a woman walks in and you're near the door, you just open the door, right? And here's why. Because you just honor women. This is like, it's not like they can't. Absolutely. When somebody snapped at me one time, I was like, I can open my own door. I was like, I know you can. I'm from the South, my bad. Like I'm just, sweet tea? Anyway, so I did that. But I was like, but here's the thing. Come on, you know this. You just honor. And the more you honor people, the better it's going to be. Some of you have a boss that you hate. You hate him. You just, you leave, you smile, but you leave and you're just like, whatever that noise is. And I'm just going to tell you, ready? You don't have to respect them. You do need to honor them. And when you honor, I'm just going to tell you, if for nothing else, because it garners influence. It's hard. It is hard to not have influence with somebody that you continually honor over and over and over and over again. And you're like, well, then it feels like I'm kind of being walked on. I don't say this well. Most of the power relationally that you'll ever get will come from humility and honoring people, right? I haven't even got the last one yet. Stonewalling versus repair. This is actually, I think, one of the most important parts of this message. The repair part of this is a cultural thing that I don't know that we do a great job of, right? Stonewalling, going like, there's a wall, you're just not going to get past it. And relationships, when you get to that point, we'll use the word boundaries. And I think boundaries are good. I'm very pro boundaries. In fact, you could go look at the 4 talks I've done on boundaries. Right? Big boundaries fan. And also, sometimes boundaries are just a way for you to stonewall somebody else because you just don't want to do the hard work of repairing the relationship. And it's almost better for you just to say that. Like, now you should have boundaries. I'm pro boundaries. And also, repairing a relationship takes work. And it's painful and it's not easy, right? You can stonewall or you can say, I'm going to repair that. We're going to come back to this in a second where I can work to repair those sorts of things. All right, so we'll go to the next one. Verse 12, I know we read this, the double schemes. And then let's go to the next one if we can. He says this. He says, for our struggle, and I love this, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. That's a great way of saying there's more happening than you realize. There is more happening in your mind, heart, spirit than you realize. And also, anytime you attribute the fullness of a problem to the person in front of you, as if they're the enemy, you're missing all of this, all right? Now, again, does your spouse frustrate you sometimes? Absolutely. You guys gonna fight? I hope so. I think it's a really good thing most of the time when it's not about windshield wipers. All those things are good. But I would say this, right? No conflict that you have is void of the beyond natural components of what drives it. The division that you feel, all of that, the dehumanization of people that we often engage in, or we sense or feel in our minds and our hearts, like all of that, at its core, is something beyond you. The flesh and blood that Paul talks about, again, it's an easy way of saying every person who's living and breathing, right? The struggle is not just against the person. It's more than that. I put it on my notes to say it this way. The enemy, right? The enemy is not the person in front of you. And every time you're tempted to think that, check yourself. I want to say before you wreck yourself, but that's not good. I'm not going to do it. No, I do it. Yeah, you got to check yourself. Anytime you approach your spouse as if they're the enemy, they're not. It's you. There's more to it. There's more to this. Anytime you approach a friendship, it's the enemy. Come on, you know this. Somebody did something that hurt you, and it's been hard to forgive, and you carry resentment, all those kinds of things. And come on, you have made them the enemy in your mind, right? They're not the enemy. There's more to it, right? The enemy to your life, and I do believe this, right? Now, I certainly don't believe in like little pitchfork and whatever. I don't think it's that. It's so much worse than all the horror movie stuff. Because it involves your heart, your mind, your soul. But that enemy, right? The enemy would love nothing more than to take the person that you love and slowly convince you that they're the problem. Because the minute that they are the problem, come on, don't miss this, you no longer carry the responsibility for repair, for doing the things that you should do. And some of you, come on, if you're really honest, most of us, me included, even right now, like if I was sitting there, I would have names of people. I totally get it. But the minute you go, and this is like the posture idea that I have, if I could like, the minute you go from like side by side to like facing off with somebody, you know what I'm talking about? Like we're moving in a direction together, and then all of a sudden you like turn and now you're facing off. That's when you know. That's when you know. And the healthiest, most mature people that you know, it's not that they're perfect at it. It's just that the alarms go off sooner for them, right? Like in the fight, the alarm goes off at 2 minutes rather than 9 minutes, and they figure out how to catch themselves. Like they're driving and they go, oh, we're in this thing. Oh, you're not this thing. Oh, also carried all. Like the person who's doing that, all of a sudden, is changing the game and how it all functions. Can I say this really well for those of you who are leaders in the room? A lot of leadership is learned. A lot of it is. The intuition part of this is when you pour into the understanding people so well that you look out and you can just know. You can know, and you recognize, don't miss this, relationally, you recognize sooner than other people, and you're able to maintain and build influence longer, right? This is one of the most fascinating things about leaders. Emotionally healthy leaders have figured out this principle, that it's not that they get it right all the time, they just do it sooner and adjust quicker. And that's the muscle that you begin to build. All right, so a couple super practical things. First one is this. You got to name the real enemy, right? Most relational tension is about what's beneath the conflict. It's rarely about the thing. It's usually about what's beneath the thing, right? There's a writer in Proverbs. I love this verse. I had to memorize it as a kid. The verse says this: the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, which in the original language here, this would be like the hidden things of a person, the deep well in their mind, heart, soul, the deep waters. But one who has insight, it draws them out. It's the curiosity that draws them out. When you get great at naming the thing, right, all of a sudden things get so much healthier, right? So much healthier. All right, the second thing is this, right? You have to say the expectation. You know this. This isn't new. This is review, and somebody has told you this before, right? But unspoken expectations become premeditated resentment, right? That's just true. You feel this in every area of your life that involves people. That when expectations aren't spoken, it is a choice to go, this is essentially like premeditated resentment. I'm going to resent you for something that I never told you that I needed or that I thought was happening. This happens in jobs. This happens in friendships. It happens in marriages. This happens certainly in leadership. All of those things. And again, in parenting, this happens all the time. You know this too. Like if you're really honest, the longer you go as a parent, the more you recognize that I'm holding kids to an expectation that I never expressed or they never understood, right? This is the hard thing as a parent, like I'll get mad because I said it. And then you backtrack and you go, I didn't really say anything. I didn't even get close to saying it. Certainly not in a way they understood, you know? And all of us, you know this. You can feel that sort of thing towards a kid or a spouse or anybody, and you go like, that's actually an expectation gap more than it's anything else. And one of the best things that you can learn to do is be a truth teller on what your expectations are. Come on, not because everybody has to agree to them or even live up to them, but when you say it, at least we're clear about where we are. But when it's like hidden behind the thing, right, and it's never said, you eventually drift into resentment that you chose by not doing the harder thing and talking about it. Now, the last one I think is a little bit less obvious, but it's, I think, super helpful for relationships is this, right? We talked about this earlier. It's making and receiving repair, right? Here's what I mean by this. This comes from the Gottman Institute. This is such a helpful thing in marriages. It's helpful in all relationships, but certainly marriages. It says, I will work to repair what I broke. I put that broke part in there. And work to receive repair from others, right? Here's what I mean. When you mess things up and you create a gap in a relationship or expectation, those kinds of things, right? You ready? It is your job to work to repair what you've done. Now, you can't fix it. Like, you can't always fix it. But you can work to repair those things with people, right? Gottman would say that the strongest relationships are the people who work to repair quickly and as fully as possible, right? They coined the term, which I think is good, like repair attempts, meaning this is any statement or action, right? Any statement or action that prevents negativity from that moment moving forward, right? Now, I've told you this is embarrassing. I'm going to give you one slightly funny one and then one that's like more deep. When we were in college, I read a lot about this. Emily and I were dating. I didn't grow up in a home where there were two parents. I just didn't see marriage up close. So I really wanted to know. I was reading about it, and I read that version of it. It's like an interruption, disrupting the system to wherever you go. And so I don't recommend this, but I would say when I read disruption, I went, I'm going to do whatever I can in the midst of one of these things to make her laugh, and I'm not naturally funny. And so what was funny is taking off your shirt when you're out to eat, right? When you're in a fight out to eat in public and somebody takes off their shirt, especially the guy, please, women don't do this, but I would say like, it's hard not to just either get more mad but laugh a little bit, right? And so I'm 19, 20, 21 years old. We were at Applebee's, and we were in a fight, and I was like, you got to laugh, and I'm just doing this. Now, I don't recommend this, and please don't picture it, but I was just like, I'm doing this, and she, stop. And then she busts out laughing. I was like, thank you, because it was going to get real awkward. But I was like, yeah, and now, don't do that. And also, that's the thing, right? What do you got to do? Whatever you got to do in the relationships, do it. Now, we've been together so long now, which is good. When we start to power up, we'll use the power up language in our relationship a lot. When we start to power up, you can feel that you're losing the more you power up, right? You know that you've been around each other long enough, and you're just like, that's not the culture of our relationship. We try to honor each other. When you are powering up over and over and over again, right? Now it's humorous. Now the other person kind of looks at each other like, really? Like that, and it's so good. It's so good. When you work on that thing, you begin to recognize the more I try to win, the more I'm losing, right? And when you do that well, it disrupts the whole thing, which is good. When you build and you work at those cultures, you should do this in the workplace too. If you're a leader, like one of the best things culturally that you can do is figure out how to disrupt the negative loops, especially around contempt, right? How do I do that? How do I repair that? Now, the second one is harder, I think, for many of us. The second one is learning to receive a repair from somebody else, right? Now, this is different than forgiveness, though you should forgive, right? Now, I will say this, like as a caveat, this does not apply to abuse. This does not apply to some of those types of things, and we all know what that category is, and so it's not that, right? But most everything else, right? Forgiveness says, I choose not to hold this against you. Receiving a repair says, I see what you're doing, and I'm going to follow you into the repair, right? Now, I would say Emily is very good at this. She's much better than I am. When I try to disrupt it, and you know this in a relationship, right? The person can receive that, or they can keep pushing forward, right? They can keep trying to win. But when you stop, when you pause, someone disrupts the cycle, and then the other person goes, I'm going to actively choose to receive whatever weirdness this human is trying to repair with, including the shirt thing. Then there's a healing that is very countercultural to what we see. Like, I wish I could apply this across the board to everybody and everything. Like, I'm not trying to fix politics in the world, but I just go like, there is the extremities, which again, you can't really touch, but like somewhere in that middle ground where we disagree and it was tense and we're angry. But now I'm angry and we disagree, so therefore, I won't engage anymore. I'm like, come on, somebody be mature and disrupt the pattern. And somebody be mature and receive whatever the repair thing is. And be human again, you know? In marriages, you know this, I'm no counselor. Go see a counselor, not me, for sure. And also, you want to disrupt that? Disrupt it. And then if you want to fix it and heal it, learn to receive the repair. Because it will change the whole thing. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is, I'm going to stay here and you're going to stay here and we're both going to try to win. And we're going to try to win and try to win and try to win until we either enter in that thing that we've got in our back pocket that we know is going to win and also make it lose, or we disrupt it way back here and go, one of us is going to repair, one of us is going to receive the repair, and then we're going to move forward. When you do that well, come on, that's what the people who have the relationships that you want to have figured out. Because it's never about the enemy that's in front of you, right? It's more than that. So I put in my notes, again, just to recap these three things. What is the real enemy? What were my unmet expectations and did I communicate them? When I ask myself that question for real, it is so enlightening for me. Did I work to repair, and did I receive repair from someone else? And here's what's great about all of these. Ready? Here's what's great about all these. All three of these, you can choose to say no at any point if that makes you feel more powerful. And also, you should acknowledge that you feeling powerful and you being powerful is two different things. You having influence and you feeling like you're having influence are two different things. You having a healthy relationship versus projecting it, those are different things. So here's the bottom line. This is the thing I wish I could just right into your brain that you always remember it in every conflict. And that's this. When I try to win, right, there is no win when I try to win. There's no win when I try to win. Now, this does not apply to everything else except for relationships. Relationships, right? There is no win when I try to win. Every time you try to win, there's not going to be a win for you. It's the best thing that you could do. Is how do I honor? How do I serve? How do I open-handedly go? I'm going to choose to do whatever it takes to love you well. So I'm going to pray for us, and I got a couple announcements. We'll wrap up from there. Let me pray for us. Father, we thank you so much for these truths. They get sort of nestled into text that was written a long, long time ago. And I pray for the person in the room who feels a little exhausted, a little tired because of how this maybe has been misapplied, or that someone else is not following them in these things, or they're trying and they just haven't figured out the way to do it yet. And God, I just pray that you would help them to take whatever these tools are and really lean into them well. God, I pray that, especially for people that are followers of you, that our marriages, our friendships, all our relationships, the things that we build and start, the leadership that we have, God, I pray that it's the envy of everyone who's not a follower of you. Because when we trust you and we follow you in those things, God, it just works. And I pray that we never am in front of somebody who we view as the enemy. God, that we see that there is more happening and that we trust and follow you. And God, I pray for most of us in the room who are like me, where a lot of this we probably know and we need the reminder on. But I pray that you would help us to apply these things quicker than we do. And so that as we apply those things quicker and we're dependent on you, that all of those relationships become more and more healthy. I pray that we would teach this to our kids. I pray that we would instill this in the people that we lead. And I pray that we would build the kind of relational structures that are irresistible. So in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.